Hello everyone, my name is Richa Mahajan, Assistant Professor, Department of Journalism and Mass Communication for Jagannath University, Jaipur. So today my topic is light to color and intensity. In the last lecture we talked about ambient light, but in this lecture we go a little further, looking how light embraces the world around us, how it caresses subjects, and how it can make or break as an image. As we will see, the first step in taking a photograph is figuring out the relationship between the subject and the light. We have also talked about harsh light and soft light, and we have learned to avoid the former and embrace the latter. Later, here we will go into more detail about light quality, and we will talk about color, both the colors of object in the picture and the colors of different types of light. Next is the color of light. The sun is the ultimate white light source. Our brains have evolved to perceive all lights as white, just like the sun. This makes it harder for us to see color in light, but our cameras are not fooled. They will capture true colors. For example, sorry. For example, a camera can see blue light from a cool light source. A photo of an iceberg in Antarctica on an overcast day illustrates the refraction of blue light. Such blue light sources can convey a feeling of relaxation and serenity or airiness. In contrast, warm light can imply danger or romance. You can often take advantage of the color of light to get a better photograph than you would if you used a flash and cleaned up all the light to white. If your light is warm or cool, if it has color in it, your picture will have one more point of interest. In some cases, the color of light alone can make your picture interesting. Note to that light can bounce off colored object and reflect their colors. Next is the white balance setting. The white balance setting on a camera does just what its name says. It balances out the different hues of light and make them all white. A photo of a bride before her wedding shows three different colors treatments with and without the balancing settings. The camera originally sees the scene very yellow daylight setting, which lends a sense of warmth and romance to the picture. The tungsten setting corrects the yellow back to white, and the white balance setting shifts the yellow end of the spectrum towards the blue for a much more neutral result. If you like getting true colors, not a cleaned up version of the world, leave your camera set on daylight. Often, this setting results in images that look like a paintings. As we said, the automatic white balance setting on a camera cleans everything up to white. You might use these settings if you were in a green room with fluorescent light, but in that situation you could of course also uses the fluorescent settings. The sunny or daylight setting is a neutral setting for sunlight. Images shot on a daylight setting look warm and relatively saturated. The tungsten setting gives a much cooler white balance. It lends everything a blue cast to combat the yellow light put out by tungsten bulbs. You can use it indoors to combat the yellow effect or not if you like the yellow. The fluorescent setting adds a layer of magenta tint to eliminate the green given off by fluorescent bulbs. In terms of color temperature, it's between daylight and tungsten. You might use that in a workshop or wherever you find fluorescent lighting on your subject. Next is the cloudy day setting, used in overcast conditions, tends to warm up the scene. It uses a white balance that's a bit more than the daylight setting. You should play with these settings from time to time, but again, you will probably generally want to use the sunny or daylight setting. When you are out shooting, yeah, or out for shooting, try to fix problems in the viewfinder so that you will get the picture you want while you are on a site. If the subject is too far away, walk closer to it. If the scene is too yellow, fix it with white balance or with flash, or move the subject to a window. As we said, the color of light is one area where the way your camera sees is different from the way your brain and your eyes see. Soft light when the light is harsh. I see. Light intensity is another area where your eyes and your camera see things differently. Intensity is the term that covers hard light versus soft light. When the light is harsh, it is intense. When it is indirect, soft and diffused, it is less intense. Dynamic range in your eyes and in your camera. Your eyes has a tremendous exposure latitude or range, which translates to an ability to forgive high contrast situations. The difference between the brightest bright and the darkest dark is called dynamic range. When the light is very harsh, your eye can see into both the shadows and the highlights. Human eyes can handle a wide dynamic range and retain details in both bright and dark images. The digital sensors and film in your camera, on the other hand, have a much smaller dynamic range. In a bright situation, when you can still see details in both the light and the dark areas, your camera will lose detail, and it can't handle both really bright and really dark things in one picture. For this reason, it's important to check your camera screen and histogram. In softer light, the range between the shadows and the highlights is narrower. The difference comes together, resulting a dynamic range that the camera can handle. If everything is soft and evenly lit, every details become visible. Now, behind the lens. Here is the picture of the photographer, his wife. Here is the picture of photographer, and this picture is of his wife, Kathy, coming home from Antarctica. It's one of his best picture, favorite picture too. It's a total grab shot. Here, photographer is explaining this picture and emotions. Is it a great picture compositionally or light wise? No, but this is when the kids met up with their mother again. She had just gotten off the plane. Is the color good? Not necessarily. Is the background perfect? No, it's kind of sloppy pretty. Junky, actually. Are the people perfect? No. But the reason this photograph has worked for photographer is because it's a real moment. I wasn't really analyzing a lot when I did it. This is the exact moment when the kids ran up to her after she was away from them for the first time. She was gone a month to Antarctica with me. This is the moment they ran up and hugged her, and it shows how much they love her and rely on her. She is their life raft. Photographer has explained here the story of his own life, and this is the picture of his family. It's about the moment sometimes. It's not always about getting it perfect. The intensity of light, the color, or the background. It's just about the moment you want to get. I always have my camera with me. It's ready to go. It's on aperture priority. I knew in this case I wanted to be close, I wanted to be right there with a wide angle lens. I knew I would need a fast shutter speed, so I cranked the ISO to about 2500 or so. Had a big hole in my lens. F by 2.8. No flash here. This is about getting close, being intimate, and shooting. I showed 10 frames or so, but this first one, when they first come in contact, that's when the emotion is best. It works. It's one of the few pictures of photographer that he has up in his house out of all the hundreds of thousands that he have shot. Next is, it's important to be aware of how the camera sees, especially in terms of light intensity, dynamic range and color. Realize the limitations of the camera. On the other hand, in other words, when the light is harsh, you need to expose for either the bright or the dark. It's often best to go for the highlights so that you don't blow them out and lose information in the image. Making the best use of light. As a rule of thumb, if you or your subjects have to squint because of the light is probably too harsh and too harsh to shoot in. The sun high in the sky is a primary source of harsh light. Wait until the sun has moved closer to the horizon, first thing in the morning, late in the afternoon, or in the evening. Colors come alive in softer light as well. You do not need to rush light to get vivid colors. When you can control the background and the light, take advantage of the situation and shoot. When you can't, it may be just a good time to watch, get a great shot later. Don't make the mistake of shooting something when the light is too harsh. Alright. Next is, on the other hand, sometimes you may want a picture at a bad time of the day, or you may not have a choice. In a field shoot with a member of the great courses team, it's impossible to get a good picture in the harsh midday sunlight, but it can be done by pulling the subject into the shade and using fill flash. With a flash, 1 by 250 of a second is the fastest shutter speed that can be used any faster, and the shutter blades will be visible in the picture. For this shoot, the aperture was set to f20 or f22 and the ISO was dialed down to 200 to slightly underexpose the background. Fill flash was then used with a softbox to diffuse the light, resulting in a studio quality portrait. Fill flash is so called because it fills in the shadows, it brightens up the subject to set it off from the background, which is slightly underexposed. You are likely to use the fill flash technique, often dial down the exposure on the background and then use a softbox on your off-camera flash to illuminate the subject. Dark objects are much easier to photograph when they are shaded or in overcast light. These kind of conditions make it easy to bring out detail. Bright light used to capture strong color creates instant richness and vibrancy. It's also interesting to focus on color when the surrounding scene is monochromatic. Keep this in mind too when you are shooting in less than ideal conditions. Focus on the emotions and actions and wait for the moment to happen. Powerful photos are not always about the intensity of the color or the color. That's all for the day. Thank you so much.